earlier this week, my whole life suddenly turned upside down, just like it did for everyone else. My main concern is whether it's strange to want the complete truth and all the details from my ex-partner. Should I simply assume the worst? I understand that I can't rely on the information I receive, and it won't change anything. How can I let go of this curiosity? Here's the full story. I met my now ex-girlfriend Jenna during our sophomore year in college. I followed her to medical school, and we had been together for almost 8 years until recently. We had big plans for a wedding and an amazing honeymoon, scheduled for May 2020, during the gap between school and residency. In January 2020, we were incredibly happy. Like any couple, we had our ups and downs, but nothing major. We shared similar life goals, interests, and both our families loved each other. However, in February 2020, Jenna went for a month-long elective course, like a summer camp for medical students. It was the first time she would be away from me for an extended period. Communication was limited due to poor cell service. But whenever I did hear from her, she seemed cheerful and mentioned making new friends. However, I started feeling anxious when she mentioned how much she was drinking during her time there. Before attending that camp, Jenna rarely drank, and throughout our 6 years together, I only witnessed her getting drunk a few times. However, during the camp, she drank more than usual, even experiencing a blackout on one occasion. Her unusual behavior and my personal insecurities led me to worry about her cheating on me, even though there was no evidence from our past to support such thoughts. In March 2020, Jenna returned home from the camp at the end of February. She seemed happy to be back, and we had some of the most bed moments we had in years during that first week. However, something felt off. She displayed a strange level of energy that I hadn't seen in a long time. She engaged in behaviors in bed that she had never done before. In a light-hearted moment, I jokingly asked her, "Who taught you this at camp?" But she reacted strongly and became upset. In April and May 2020, our wedding, vacation, and our final enjoyable experiences in medical school were all canceled due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We had to move out of our shared apartment and temporarily move back in with our respective parents because our lease ended and we were planning to relocate for residency. It was a challenging period for both of us. We rescheduled the wedding for September 2020. On our original wedding day, we still celebrated in some way, even considering a courthouse marriage. During our time apart, I started feeling Jenna becoming more distant, which became evident when she took a trip to North Carolina to meet her camp friends without inviting me. This was the first time either of us had excluded the other from a vacation. In June 2020, we went house hunting and purchased a house together. However, while we were together, I noticed that she had changed the passwords on her phone. This, combined with everything else that had happened before, raised alarms in my mind. Jenna reassured me that nothing was wrong, but her camp friends thought it was strange that I had unrestricted access to her phone, considering it controlling and invasive of her privacy. She also expressed that she felt like she didn't know herself anymore, and that I was suffocating her. She mentioned the absence of fireworks and electricity between us, and that she no longer felt a sexual attraction towards me. In July 2020, we completed the house purchase and moved in together. Throughout the month, we had several lengthy conversations that felt like she was being influenced by her new friends. She started accusing me of being controlling and paranoid, which were feelings she had never expressed before. Towards the end of the months, we had a bridal shower for our rescheduled wedding, but Jenna didn't want to share a bed with me. I couldn't understand why our relationship was deteriorating so rapidly. As August 2020 came to an end, Jenna dropped a bombshell on me, suggesting that we should take a break. I had a complete breakdown. Our relationship had declined significantly from April to August. Our communication had suffered, and we had almost completely stopped being close. Jenna even stopped wearing her engagement ring. I attributed these issues to the chaos and challenges we had faced, canceled weddings, buying a house, and her entering the demanding phase of her life, residency. In September 2020, my mental health started to deteriorate. I became obsessed with keeping Jenna happy. I dedicated all my time to working on the new house and the yard, neglecting my remote job. She no longer wanted any physical affection from me and began staying out late with her coworkers. I'm talking about coming home at 3-4 a.m. without much communication, and she would smell like alcohol. In October 2020, we went on our first vacation together, but it turned out to be more stressful than enjoyable. When we returned, I finally opened up to a friend and my parents about what was happening. They were all taken aback by the situation. I shared everything I've mentioned here and more, expressing my suspicion that she might be cheating. My mom pointed out that she was treating me more like a roommate than a partner, and she was right. Finally, I sat Jenna down and made it clear that she had to choose whether she was fully committed to our relationship or not. I couldn't continue as her roommate, and if we were together, she had to wear her engagement ring. From November to December 2020, our bed moments became scarce, happening only about once a month since we moved into the new house. In late December, Jenna had to quarantine, and she essentially asked me to leave the house. I respected her request. Our relationship had hit rock bottom at that point. In January and February 2021, we had another argument early in January after she arrived home late from a party with her coworkers. She had initially promised to be home by 8 p.m., but the time kept getting pushed back until she finally asked if she could stay the night. She was also heavily drinking at the party once again. By early February, much to Jenna's disappointment, I arranged for us to attend relationship counseling. Although she wasn't enthusiastic about participating, she agreed because I requested it. However, after the first session, she made it clear that she didn't like the counselor. We each had one individual therapy session and attended 2 joint sessions together. During this time, Jenna took a solo vacation to Florida, driving 1,000 miles each way in a week. She didn't want me to accompany her. From March to June 2021, our relationship started to improve. Jenna seemed happier on a daily basis, and we found a good rhythm in our life together once again. I also began individual therapy to help me cope with the challenges we faced during the fall and winter. Gradually, I started rebuilding my trust in her. She appeared to be less engaged with her camp friends and more invested in our relationship. She made sure to always wear her engagement and wedding rings whenever she left the house. Although she had been doing this since October, it became more consistent and noticeable. We began joking and functioning as a team again. I started feeling at ease leaving her in the house for extended weekends when she was working. Previously, I had convinced myself that she would go out partying if I were away, so I kept a closer watch on her, which wasn't fair. However, this week took a troubling turn. During my long weekend trip with my parents, I overheard a conversation that took place on Saturday night between Jenna and a guy she knew from the camp in February 2020. It was not a typical conversation. Jenna was drinking and sounded slightly tipsy, but not drunk, and they were flirting with each other. She seemed to initiate the conversation and mentioned a secret meeting they had in early August, discussing the revealing clothes she wore. She mentioned their previous meetups and even discussed plans for next February, suggesting she wanted to return to the same camp, and asked the guy if he had any concerns, questioning whether it was a lack of trust in her or in himself. Jenna had another interesting line. "I want to see you restrained when you really, really, really want something, because I have a feeling I'll be incredibly impressed. Can't wait for February." This conversation confirmed my initial suspicion of cheating. All the red flags she dismissed as nothing and made me feel crazy were actually valid. It became clear from the conversation that they talked frequently, and he even called her back in the morning. I knew exactly who this guy was, the married camp coordinator, older, and residing in Virginia. Without hesitation, I reached out to my parents and 2 friends seeking advice. I had made up my mind to end the relationship. I just didn't know how to approach it. When Jenna arrived home from work, I confronted her and asked her to sit at the dining room table. I questioned, "Can you tell me what Nick, the caller, means to you?" She replied, "He's just a friend." I retorted, "Oh, just a friend." Then she admitted, "I've never told you this, but he's one of the closest friends I made at camp." I continued probing, dropping hints about my knowledge of the extent of their involvement. Eventually, she broke down and confessed to seeing him on her way back from Florida in February. I had to confront her about my knowledge of the August meetup as well. She admitted that they drunkenly made out at camp and had been in contact for the past 16 months on a fairly regular basis. with his wife being unaware of their interactions. So, at the very least, she emotionally cheated on me, leaving me behind during one of the most crucial years of our lives, filled with significant transitions, while also manipulating me into trusting and loving her. Everything started to make sense. Our relationship took a nosedive during the period when they were in frequent communication. She actually wanted to break up at the end of August, right after they met up. And remember that strange decision of hers to drive 2,000 miles alone to Florida in February? Now, let's delve into her version of what happened and the specific details in chronological order. Toward the end of camp, they both got drunk at a bonfire and made out when nobody was around. She later mentioned there was some over-the-clothes groping as well. I also recall her telling me about this night. It was the first time she had ever thrown up from drinking. She ended up sleeping on the bathroom floor and then on a couch in the common area. She told me she was extremely attracted to him and felt a level of excitement that she hadn't experienced with me in years. They kept talking from March to May, and it seems his own relationship with his wife isn't going well. He managed to convince her that our relationship was also bad. In June 2020, she initially claimed she sent him bra and bikini pictures when I asked, but then 2 days later she admitted to sending more revealing photos. Around the same time, Jenna actually suggested that I take candid pictures of her, which was unusual considering the other warning signs that were already present. She confessed that Nick's influence prompted her to make that offer, probably out of guilt. In August, they apparently met up for 30 minutes before he went to work at a park, and they went for a hike. In February, they met for coffee, where she said they exchanged a side hug and spent 30 minutes together after waiting for him to finish work for an hour. She claims there has been no closeness between them, but I'm torn between believing and doubting her words. She mentioned that their conversations mostly revolved around work, and they decided to end the flirty stuff around the new year, possibly as Nick's resolution, honestly. However, in the past couple of weeks, they started talking more and flirting again. In the end, I ended the relationship with her. However, we're still in contact, and we've shared the news with some friends and family. When I called her mom, we both cried. Jenna is devastated, and I can't tell if it's because we're not together anymore or because she's afraid she'll lose most of her friends once the truth comes out. She mentioned that her mom is considering sending her to a facility, which I find kind of funny in a twisted way. I advised Jenna to inform Nick about what happened and encourage him to talk to his wife. She did as I suggested, and apparently he had a strong reaction. Now I'm wondering if it would be appropriate for me to reach out to his wife myself. I'm feeling confused and unsure of what to believe. I want to know all the details I can, but deep down, I know I can't trust the information I've been given. And even if I did get more details, I doubt it would change anything. How can I shake off this lingering feeling? A second story. Here's some background. I met my wife a little over 2 years ago after I returned from a military deployment. She's also in the military and had just moved to the same town for a long-term training program. We hit it off really well, better than any other relationship I had been in. We had some amazing moments together. Sure, we had some silly fights like arguing over the AC not working, but overall, we were great at resolving conflicts and didn't fight all the time. After dating for a little over a year, we decided to move in together and even got a puppy. That fall, I asked her father for permission and proposed to her. Our families have a great relationship with each other and us. However, she had to move to another state for 6 months of training, so we decided to get legally married to ensure we would be stationed together, which is not uncommon in the military. Due to COVID, our requests for leave were consistently denied, except for the Thanksgiving and Christmas period, until both of us got vaccinated. Finally, my leave request was approved, and I had plane tickets to see her the week everything fell apart. While we were apart, we made sure to FaceTime every night, texted each other throughout the day, and even went house hunting for our next duty station together. We continued planning our real wedding in a church with our friends and family, did our taxes, watched movies, and did everything we could to make the long-distance situation easier. Just hours before I found out about the affair, we were talking about how exciting it was that our time apart was coming to an end and how strong we were in making it work. Both of us had been in long-distance relationships before, so we thought we knew how to handle it. So I got this strange message on Facebook from someone saying, "Hey, our spouses are messing around. I have found pictures and videos." I didn't pay much attention to it, thinking it was just some spam or scam message asking for my credit card details or something like that. Then the person sent another message saying, "Hey, give me a call when you can. Your wife and my husband are having an affair. I have pictures and videos on WhatsApp. It's happened 3 times without protection. They even said, 'I love you,' to each other." At that moment, I realized it wasn't spam, but instead, this poor woman might be going through some kind of mental breakdown. I immediately called my wife and asked her to check on her friend, but in the middle of the phone call, the pictures and videos were sent to me. My knees gave way, and all I remember is hearing my wife say, "I'm so sorry, I was never going to tell you." In my shock, I accidentally knocked a glass off the counter and I ended up stepping on it. There was blood everywhere, but I didn't even feel the pain. I called my boss and told him I couldn't come to work the next day. Then I called my mother and my best friend. The bleeding didn't stop, so I went to the emergency room and they had to give me 6 stitches, which were just removed this week. My wife kept calling me repeatedly for hours, but I ignored her calls. Since then, I've had very limited contact with my wife, except for a couple of phone calls where I try my best to control my emotions and ask her, "Why did this happen?" She tells me she felt a tremendous amount of guilt about our upcoming duty station, even though it wasn't her fault that I didn't get the job I wanted. She claims that she felt pressured whenever I would say things like, "It's okay, all I need to be happy is to be with you." She also says she felt lonely and without purpose during her training, and this other husband started confiding in her about his unhappy marriage of 16 years and 3 kids. She admits that she said she loved him and had an emotional connection, but she didn't really mean it. She just didn't want to hurt him by not saying it back. On her part, she claims I never did anything wrong, and she takes full responsibility for her actions. I made up my mind that regardless of the situation, I needed to hire a lawyer. The lawyer informed me that according to military law, I could charge both my wife and the other husband with adultery and other offenses, which could potentially result in them losing their jobs. After a lot of thinking and therapy sessions, I realized that seeking revenge won't solve anything, and what we really need is a straightforward divorce according to civilian law. Since we only got legally married right before my wife moved away, we've kept our finances separate and don't have any shared assets or debt at the moment. I've been the primary caregiver for our dog, and he's registered under my name and in my state, so I want to keep him. Here's the question that keeps popping up in my mind. Am I rushing into the divorce? My wife appears to be genuinely remorseful and wants to work things out, but I can't determine if her feelings are driven by shame or if she truly feels sorry. My therapist suggests that she has deep-rooted narcissistic tendencies and needs professional help, and I have to come to terms with the fact that she's not the woman I thought I married. I wouldn't say I proposed earlier than I wanted to, but we did get paper married early on to ensure our careers would keep us together, and we were in an exciting phase of buying a home and planning our real wedding with friends and family. We've overcome many challenges together in our relationship, but this is the first time our team feels divided. Regardless, I have no desire to see her anytime soon, let alone buy a house with her or trust her when we eventually go on our next deployment. Although it may seem like a quick decision, I believe that divorce is the rational choice that's best for both of us. If we are truly meant to be together, we can always get remarried and do it the right way since we'll still be stationed together anyway. However, she needs to address the underlying issues that led her astray and caused this turmoil.